The Agweek Market Wrap is sponsored by Gateway Building Systems.
Welcome to the Agweek Market Wrap, brought to you by Gateway Building Systems. I'm Randy Koenen with the Red River Farm Network, and we're joined by Randy Martinson of Martinson Ag Risk Management. Kind of a wild week, wild day here in these markets, Randy, but we've been saying that for the last 6 months, it seems like.
Yeah, it was. This was one of those weeks that it was kind of draining, and you look at it, I think wheat traded lower just about every day this session or this week, every session. Soybeans and corn tried to see a little bit of a breakout from the weather forecast, but we just didn't seem to be able to gain any traction. Even though we've got a friendly weather forecast that's out there, there's enough rain entering into it ahead of it that's just kind of downplaying it. And the traders seem to be looking for something to grab onto, and they just don't know what to grab right now.
Right. Well, everything's with just nothing seems profitable. So they're just kind of exiting the market, I think, is the way, almost the feel you get.
It is. I mean, I think that's a really good way to put it. I mean, you've got the economic concerns, the macro concerns, which is causing some trouble as far as the stock markets are concerned. They were up good on Friday, but in the big picture, we're looking at the possibility of now a 1 full point interest rate hike in the next Fed meeting. That kind of hit the market, but it seems like a lot of the funds are liquidating the commodities, taking that money and trying to buy the cheaper stocks because dollar cost averaging. They're trying to get their prices down a little bit on some of the stocks they own, and that seems to be the trend that's setting.
Yeah, we saw a couple of years ago, we saw the race to the bottom as far as interest rates go to see who would get the lowest, the quickest. And now it almost seems like we're just doing the reverse, to race to the top.
Right. And, Canada did 1 full point increase this week. And I think that had the Fed. And then with the inflation coming in at 9.1, that was a little bit of a shock to the system, too. And I think that is causing the Fed to now try to throw a little bit more fire on this fuel or fuel on the fire, I should say.
Yeah. We had this WASD report on Tuesday. I didn't think it was that bearish, but boy, did we sell off afterwards. Holy man.
It gave us the unknown, and it kind of brought to light what we were looking at. And, the numbers were a little bit negative on the corn side as we did see stocks increase by close to 70 million bushels. Wheat, I didn't think it was that bad a number that we should have seen that kind of a hit in the wheat side of things. And then on soybeans, of course, it wasn't as friendly as we expected, but we still saw stocks drop enough. But yeah, I agree. I didn't think that the numbers from the report were justified 45-cent drop in just about all the commodities.
I think the number that surprised everybody was North Dakota's wheat production, I believe.
We have record yield potential for the winter wheat crop, record yield potential for the spring wheat. And I think if they were driving around out in the fields, they wouldn't think it was record yields out there because, I mean, we've got a decent crop coming. Now, this heat is going to set the crop back a little bit. We've got disease pressure and we got a late crop. I mean, most guys are looking at harvesting now, or the idea is that the harvest will take place in September. Well, a lot can happen between now and September.
Yeah, that's for sure. This crop, as you mentioned, we did seem to catch up a little bit here, but we haven't caught up fully because we started 3 weeks to a month behind almost. But and every farmer that I've talked with has always said it'd be great if this was first part of June instead of the first part of July.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, you're right. The crop, and that's part of it, is that the spring wheat ratings were better than expected in the report on Monday afternoon, too, up 4%. And you're right. The crop looks great when you drive by it at 60 miles an hour. You get out and walk in it, it looks a little bit different. Corn looks great, for the end of June, middle of June, instead of the middle of July. And, without seeing a lot of tassels out in our corn crop right now, that has it. Now we're looking at needing to get our frosts stay away until October.
And that's the one thing, it kind of balances out. But yeah, as you said, that frost, all it takes is one morning, and that's the kicker.
It is, and you can change your yield potential by 10% in a heartbeat. With an early frost, you can drop your yield for corn or the test weight down to 50 pounds pretty quick. Well, there you've got a 10% cut in yield. So we still are not quite out of the woods yet as far as our crop is concerned. It looks good. We're getting rains. I mean, this rain that came in on Thursday night into Friday morning was a little surprise. That's certainly going to help. Another system is expected this weekend. When we get the heat next week, we could be now looking, if these rains come into play, same with the Corn Belt, it could create the greenhouse effect, which is going to help the crops grow even more.
We saw that, 3, 4 years ago, where we had the warm overnight temperatures where this crop just kept on growing.
Right. And if it's got the moisture, it can do it. Let's just hope that it's not a 2012 situation like it was for the Corn Belt where it got really hot. They didn't have a chance to pollinate very well. And that's the other part is corn is going to be pollinating the majority of it in the Corn Belt next week when this heat is expected to hit.
Yeah. How do traders handle this with you got the Eastern Corn Belt looks like that weather forecast a little bit cooler, a little bit wetter, while the Western side hot and dry. Do we just kind of, is it choppy action then?
It's choppy action then. A lot's going to depend on just how hot it gets. If they miss a rain in the east, if temperatures are a little bit warmer, that's what the trade's going to basically focus on next week is that forecast for Sunday night into Monday. And if we get a little hotter in the Western Corn Belt, the Northern Plains, that might, balance it out to cause a little bit more support into the market.
How does a guy market into something like this, or don't you just let it kind of do what it does and just hold back and wait and see?
In a case like this, we've seen a little bit of a pullback in the market. If you're worried about prices falling apart, you protect yourselves with puts, but you try to keep the upside open at this point and, wait for a weather rally to develop. And we will get one at some point here. I still think we're going to, maybe test a little bit above that 50% retracement. Well, it was interesting, Sunday night, corn and wheat traded back to their 50% retracement of what their current high and low between their current high and low has been. Wheat didn't even get close to it.
Yeah. Well, it seems like, typically it's more like a typical market. It overcorrects first high and then low or back and forth. So it just kind of keeps wandering back and forth.
That's right. And that's what we seem to be doing right now is that the market is trying to find the parameters. And I think if we had a little bit better outlook as far as the macroeconomics were concerned, we might see this thing stabilize a little bit better. But, we keep hearing that back and forth, and that I think is causing a little bit extra selling pressure.
Still seeing the dollar at highs, and the export sales seem to be reflecting that as well. So we're seeing some demand destruction, I think, aren't we?
Oh, we most definitely are. I mean, our export sales were nothing short of terrible, on Thursday. Other than wheat, we finally got the wheat price low enough where we started to attract a little bit of attention. The largest wheat export sale in 10 years. So that was impressive. That was supportive to the wheat market, and yet we still didn't go higher. We just kind of maintained the prices. But corn and soybeans, of course, were disappointing, and soybeans extremely disappointing with a big negative number.
Now that on Friday here, when we were recording this, we saw a market that closed mixed as far as corn and soybeans, old crop, new crop. Was that some spreading going on?
I think it was. I mean, right now you're looking at, old crop demand has been good, basis levels have been strong, and this has kind of helped to put some underlying support in the market. Now I think we're looking more at the new crop and the idea that this weather could cause a little bit of trouble.
Well, Randy, before we go here, any final thoughts or any comments?
Well, I mean, the big thing is keep watching the weather. I mean, you look at the livestock markets this week, we had strong performance there because of concerns about slow marketing and poor performance on the cattle side. Domestic demand is the one thing we need to keep going in the meat side. Exports kind of faltered a little bit, but cattle are finally looking like they could be breaking out if we see a decent or a little bit stabilization as far as the economy is concerned. And when the grains, it's about the weather now.
Yeah. Speaking of the weather, that'll impact this cattle market too, won't it?
Hugely. Yeah, it definitely will. I mean, if we start looking at lowering our slaughter weights, which they were down this week, if they continue to drop and we already have lower numbers, that's going to start creating a little bit more of a pinch as far as the product being available to the consumer.
Sure. And then you have the dichotomy of higher meat case prices because of inflation. What do you do?
Exactly. I mean, yeah, there's the catch 22 and that's what the market's got to try to deal with right now.
All right. Well, thanks, Randy. Randy Martinson, president of Martinson Ag Risk Management. For markets and market analysis throughout the week, listen to your local Red River Farm Network radio station, or you can visit rrfn.com. The Agweek Market Wrap, sponsored by Gateway Building Systems.